My number one pick for our list of the movies that shape our relationship with our siblings is The Remains of the Day. It's from 1993, a James Ivory directed movie, a Merchant Ivory production. And the synopsis is a butler who sacrificed body and soul to service in the years leading up to World War II realizes too late how misguided his loyalty was to his lordly employer. Starring Emma Thompson, Anthony Hopkins, Christopher Reeves. Um, yeah, so this movie, unlike the two movies I picked, where Mary Poppins sort of represents our childhood, Benedict Beckham represents maybe our teenage years, this movie is sort of an adult movie, which I had seen before, but my sister and I watched it together maybe 3 or 4 years ago when she was visiting me in Seattle. And I really want to show this movie to her and kind of get her reactions because we've been talking, living in different parts of the world about our movie tastes and how they were evolving and growing. And I sort of saw her really develop into somebody who likes movies that are deeper and serious and, appreciates good storytelling. So I was very curious to see how she responds to this movie, and she absolutely loved it. And over the years, but I think it started at this movie that it turned her into a period piece film lover, which I have been for a very long time. So it's sort of become like a new shared passion of ours. This movie weirdly also became a gateway for her into Jane Austen. So she then sort of, even though this movie is kind of not that, but because it's a British period piece, in our minds, they kind of fall in this, they're cut from the same cloth, if you will, in some ways. So she, went and watched all the movies, and I don't know if she's watched the BBC miniseries, which I think we should watch at some point, which are arguably better. But it kind of became like a new bond between us about these complex characters, living in this time of British history where the class system and the divide between the two and such really is interwoven into how their lives pan out. When you are born and you grow up in India, the shadow, if you will, of British colonialism looms large. Whether it's in the historic buildings around you, the history books that you read, or this kind of weird juxtaposition of admiration for that society and that culture, but also you disparage them at the same time. It's sort of what colonialism, I suppose, does. So we've obviously grown up with that, and have a lot of regard and appreciation for just British culture and British things and British countryside and all of that. So I think this movie captures a lot of that as well. It's and the whole class struggle is very much part of the fabric of the movie because Anthony Hopkins is this lifelong devoted butler to the point that he's so loyal to his household that even though he has this great connection with Emma Thompson's character, who's kind of the head housekeeper, he never gets to a place of really even acknowledging the love that he has for her. And it's sort of so painful as you see these two characters grow older in their life. So there's something very romantic and charming about that kind of long lost love, which I think also bonded the two of us. And then, you know, we also, I feel like, see a little bit of a parallel to our lives with this movie because my dad, growing up in the army, we had a lot of kind of upstairs, downstairs sort of living. And as my dad sort of, grew in the rank, and especially when you get to a general title, there's a lot of that stuff in your life. And, every now and then we would go downstairs, if you will, and get a peek into the lives of the folks who were supporting the household. And many of those folks actually grew up with us because they were such parts of the family. So when we moved from one place to the other, they came along with us. So I think we also kind of felt that collective bond with this movie of, these people who are supporting the household who can often be invisible to us as kids and as a family were very much part of our household. In fact, the household and our private lives and such couldn't really run if these folks were not really a part of it, and we celebrated holidays and such all together and such. So I think there were those elements that spoke to us as well. And since then, like, I've become a huge Merchant Ivory production fan. It's kind of cool to see that this kind of brash South Asian Ismail Merchant with this very suave and kind of laid back and almost introverted James Ivory coming together and making these movies in the 80s on shoestring budgets with these, big, huge stars tackling, massive, literally subjects from England. None of them are from there. That sort of has really impressed me as well. And a lot of the movies are amazing, and this is definitely in the top. So yeah, that's my number one, Remains of the Day.
Oh, yeah. So I am a fan of Merchant Ivory. This is one of the few I have not seen of their productions. Interesting too, just as you're getting into some of that background on why this film, just thinking back to your other two films you mentioned, all three of them are British stories. I just think that's kind of.
I didn't even think about that.
Now they're not all British films. To your point,
Yeah.
Merchant Ivory not British. Disney, obviously, Walt Disney was not, though the author of Mary Poppins was. But just interesting to see that it was through the, not to be a pop psychologist here, but through this lens of British stories that those are the films that you happen to gravitate to from when thinking of your sister and your childhood. I also have a question on what you mentioned. This was a film you wanted to get her take on and her to see, and what was it specifically where you're like, oh, I really want her to experience this movie. I want to experience it together with her. Like, what was it about this particular film?
I think it was all these themes of the class system stuff that we talked about, the upstairs, downstairs stuff. And then just that we'd been talking a lot about the movies that we were watching. And I really appreciated, her analysis of characters and the psychology and the filmmaking and performances and such, that, when we got together after however much time had passed, I just felt that this would be a great movie that kind of summed up all of those pieces. And that's why I wanted to get her reactions. Yeah.
Well, that's great too, that you were able to open up another world for her in terms of, again, Jane Austen and, this period film genre, which is a favorite of mine as well. Again, embarrassing that this is a film I have not seen in that genre, but that's cool that was able to open that door for her and you were able to help her experience something that you had loved as well.
Yeah, now super excited about that. And yeah, these movies are great. And I'm so happy that, my sister is in many ways like my best friend, and we share so many loves between music and food and such. And it's been awesome that she's turned into a big movie person as well, because that may not have happened. And in many ways, my list is kind of, I feel like counting through my progression of appreciation for movies. And it's great to have had a partner and a friend like my sister in that journey.
Hey there, it's Alex. If you like the review and discussion Karan and I just had, make sure you subscribe to our channel, Movies That Shaped Us, to get full episodes. Every other Wednesday, Karan and I cover a topic around important people, places, events, and moments in our lives, and then explore it through 3 of our favorite movies. Subscribe right now, or follow our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts via the link in the description below. Hope you join us for the journey.